Before you agree to a Section 32 settlement, you need to understand this. What the insurance company offers you and what your case is actually worth are oftentimes two very different things. Settle at the wrong time or for the wrong amount, and you could lose tens of thousands of dollars more than you should have otherwise received. So in this video today, we're going to break down exactly how Section 32 settlements work, how to figure out the real value of your case, and the timing secret to maximizing the size of your settlement. I see everyone's chiming in now. We're going to jump right in. As always, folks, if you have questions, please post them here, and we will do everything we can to answer all of your wonderful questions today. But we're going to jump right in. So without further ado, what exactly is a Section 32 settlement in the workers' compensation world? As always, folks, I am Rex Sikowski. I'm here to answer all of your workers' compensation questions as best I can. My telephone number here is 212-406-8989. If you have any questions, if you need help with your case, your personal injury case, your Social Security disability case, or your workers' compensation case, give us a call. If we can't help you here, we could certainly help find you the right attorney for the job. We are only licensed in New York, but we can certainly help you find attorneys in other states. What exactly is a New York Section 32 settlement in the workers' compensation world? A Section 32 settlement is a workers' compensation settlement here in New York where you trade your right for future workers' compensation benefits for one lump sum of money. Okay, it is essentially the only way you can waive your rights to workers' compensation because you can't otherwise do that. Sometimes we see in cases that are controverted, messy cases, he said, she said, they never got hurt, this guy never worked for me, I don't know what you're talking about. Those yucky, messy cases, every once in a while, a piece of paper will pop up where your client signed this paper that said, I will not claim workers' compensation. Well, guess what? You cannot waive your right to workers' compensation benefits. You cannot give up your right to workers' compensation benefits with the exception of one scenario, and that's the Section 32 agreement. With a Section 32, you are waiving your right to future benefits in exchange for generally a lump sum of money. There are nuances and special circumstances and exceptions, but that's the general rule right there. It's the only time you can waive your right to future compensation. It comes from Section 32 of the New York State Workers' Compensation Law. Very simple and easy way as to how it got its name. And it is the most common type of settlement that we use here in New York State. What makes the Section 32 so unique and why is it so frequently used here in New York State? Well, number one, it's voluntary. No one can force another side to enter into a Section 32 agreement. If a carrier is offering an amount of money that the claimant finds unacceptable, they don't have to settle it. Oftentimes, there's misunderstandings as to what the valuation should be and where the basis of those offers and demands come from, but ultimately, no one can force the other side to settle your case. No judge, no employer, or no insurance company can force a settlement. They could be very persuasive and they could be very suggestive that a settlement be entered into, but no one can force it to happen. Oftentimes, well, not often, but we do see once in a while, people say, I'm going to let the judge tell me what my settlement is worth. A judge is never going to do that. And a judge is never going to tell you if you're getting a good deal or a bad deal. The judge's role in a Section 32 settlement is only to review the claim, question the claimant, and to make a determination as to whether or not that settlement is unconscionable or not. So the judge is not going to make sure you get the most amount of money. The judge is not going to make sure the insurance company gets the best deal for them. The judge is just going to make sure that this was an arm's length transaction that is not unconscionable. What other key features are there of the Section 32 agreement? It's flexible. It's super flexible. You could settle anything. You could settle any aspect of a claim or an entire claim. Usually we do that through stipulated agreements when it's a portion or a part of a case, but a Section 32 can be implemented at any point in time during the case as long as both sides agree. We've reached Section 32 settlements with full and final closures before a case was established, before a case's first hearing, in controverted cases, before testimony was taken. We did one today. We reached the Section 32 resolution midway through testimony. We took the claimant's testimony, and today we were gearing up to take the employer's testimony. And what do you know? We were able to resolve the case with the Section 32 right there in the middle and not have to go forward with any further trial. And it gives you, the client, a finite, a definite, a result that you know. There's no uncertainty of going to the judge and letting the judge make a decision, which could go one way or the other. And we can use a Section 32 at any point in time. What else makes it unique? It's final. It is final, it is binding, it is enforceable, it is irrevocable. Once a Section 32 is approved and the 10-day waiting period passes, here in New York, we have a cooling off period. So you're going to settle your case. You're going to go in front of a judge. The judge is going to review the case. If the judge approves that case, the law gives us an extra 10 days. It's called a cooling off period for either side, you and the insurance company, to make sure you know what you're doing and make sure you want to go through with this. And you have 10 extra days to change your mind. After that 10 days passes, the agreement becomes final. The board issues a decision, and your case cannot be reopened for any reason at any time unless all parties, you, the insurance company, the board, agree to reopen your case. And no insurance company generally is going to agree to do that because they paid to close it. So with a full and final settlement, the case is closed, it's locked down, it's set in stone, whatever term you want to use. And generally speaking, with a full and final Section 32, you become responsible to pay for your own future medical care for the injuries and disabilities related to the case. What are other features? Just like any workers' compensation benefit, monetary benefit, it's tax-free. The money you receive is not taxed, just like your regular workers' compensation benefits. So that is a very nice bonus that people get that they don't often realize. Your workers' comp monetary benefits are tax-free. Now, there are many different types of Section 32 settlements, as we just touched on. I hate this new water bottle. Many different types of Section 32 settlements. We have the full and final Section 32. A full and final is a complete, total closure of your workers' compensation case. It closes your medical. It closes your indemnity. Indemnity is the money to you. It closes out the whole case in one shebang. You get one big fat check, and that's it. Case closed. Everyone goes their separate ways. It's the most common type of Section 32 agreement that we deal with. Second most common is the indemnity-only Section 32, and that's when we close out the indemnity portion of the case, the money portion of the case, but we leave your medical benefits open. Now, a lot of times people will ask me, well, I want to leave my medical open. Well, it's not always that easy. It's usually the indemnity-only Section 32 is done because we're kind of forced into that, and I know nobody's forced to do anything here, but if a person is receiving Social Security disability benefits or Medicare benefits, we have to get approval from Medicare, from the federal government, to close that case. And part of that approval process, they provide us with a set-aside amount. They tell us how much of your settlement needs to be set aside for your future medical care. And they don't do that in the mindset of looking at your settlement and figuring out what percentage of that settlement. They don't care what your settlement value is. They look at your case, your treatment, your injuries, what treatment you've gotten, what treatment you need, how old you are, how long you're going to live, and what type of treatment you're going to need over the course of your life. And they value that down. They boil it down to a present dollar value of what your future medical could be. So you could have a $100,000 full and final Section 32 with a $20,000 Medicare set-aside that's suggested by Medicare. You could also have a $100,000 Section 32 and a $350,000 Medicare set-aside. Now, clearly, you can't set aside $350,000 out of $100,000, right? So in those cases, the insurance company is very rarely going to turn around and say, we'll give you $450,000, because now they're going to start telling you that they're pricing themselves out of what they think the case is valued. So what they might do in that circumstance is say, hey, we'll do it indemnity only Section 32. So if we valued the case as $100,000 full and final settlement, but we have this huge Medicare set aside, you know what, maybe we'll give you $75,000, but we'll leave all your medical open, and any treatment that you need down the road is covered pursuant to the law. So that's what happens a lot of times with a indemnity only settlement, and it's the second most common Section 32 agreement. Similarly, yet much more rare, is the medical only Section 32, and that's when you close only the medical side. It's rare because it only happens on a very rare occasion when an indemnity only settlement has already been done, and at some point then potentially, depending on the facts of the case, is a medical only possible, but it's very rare. The full and final and the indemnity only are the two biggies. All right. Why choose a Section 32 settlement to settle your workers' compensation case? So if you urgently need money now to pay off debt, so some people, listen, people have different they're in different situations in their life, and sometimes people need money and they need money now. That's why those cash funding places exist. And unfortunately, they don't exist in the workers' compensation world here in New York State. You can't take a loan against your workers' compensation case, but sometimes people need money and they need money now, and they're willing to sacrifice their case or the value of their case in order to get quick and easy money by settling their case. That's a big reason why sometimes a Section 32 settlement is a good option. Another option is if you want a lump sum instead of ongoing checks, and we see that in those permanent partial disability circumstances where you get locked into a cap, we call it, a set amount of money for a set period of time. Well, rather than getting $450 a week for the next 300 weeks, I'd rather get a big fat check and do what I want with my money and not have to worry about workers' compensation. That's probably the most common Section 32 settlement, or one of the most common. If the insurance company wants something from you and is willing to pay more, what would they want from you that they're willing to pay and pay more for and give you money for? And that's usually a full closure of your case. If they see that there's exposure down the road, maybe it's the type of case where you hurt your back and you hurt your neck and you haven't lost time yet, but there is the potential that you might lose time. They might throw you a couple bucks. They might throw you more than what your case is worth today with no lost time, just to close the case and make sure that if you do lose time, there's no chance of you coming back and hitting them up for more benefits. So they want that closure. They're going to pay you for it. Maybe that same closure is what they want for your medical. Maybe there's there's a potential for surgery or some expensive treatment, and they don't want to get stuck with that exposure down the road. So maybe they might close your case now with a Section 32, so that if you do need treatment and you do need surgery down the road, you won't go after them for it because they gave you extra money up front. Your case is closed. PPD with a cap, like I said before, if you don't want those ongoing checks, that applies whether your case has been classified with a permanent partial disability or not. You might not yet be classified. You might still be getting temporary benefits on a weekly basis. And you might want to say, you know what, enough is enough. Let's accelerate this thing. Get me as much as you can get me. Give me one big fat lump sum check and let me close out this case. And that's a reason why to do a Section 32. So whether it's a PPD or not, whether you've been classified with a permanent disability or not, you might still want to forego the weekly checks in favor of one big fat lump sum check. You keep using the term big fat check. I don't know how big each check is going to be, but one lump sum check in lieu of weekly checks. Another time that a Section 32 is a good option if your condition is stabilized and is unlikely to worsen. So maybe there's not the potential of expensive, big, crazy treatment down the road. Maybe it's a good time to settle in and take a look at the big picture, and maybe it's worth trying to get your case settled. Get that one big lump sum of money that you have control over. You can invest it. You can, if you need a new car or a new house, or there's something in your life that requires that type of money. I mean, investment's always a good option. Let your money make money. But again, everyone to each their own. And sometimes having that big check is helpful to people, letting you control your own money. One of the factors, if you need to resolve disagreements with the insurance company, disputes over the facts of your case. So again, kind of the reason why we settled that case earlier today. We were fighting back and forth about a lot of the details of the case and the facts surrounding the accident, the facts surrounding when notice was given, and the facts surrounding the extent of the injuries and whether there was pre-existing condition. Well, sometimes you can tell the insurance company, look, let's try to work this out. I know what you're saying. You know what I'm saying. You tell me what you think the value is. I'll tell you what I think the value is, and let's work. And it might take a couple steps to work towards some middle ground and get that thing done. But at least it gives both sides a certain result that they are aware of, that they're choosing to do, and it eliminates the uncertainty of leaving it up to a judge, because you could win it all and you could win nothing. By the way, Powerball tonight, big money, big money. If you want a clean final end to a complicated case, so that's pretty much what I'm getting at there. It gives you closure. And I know that sounds a little bit silly to some people, but to my clients that have been dealing with cases for a few years now, and they've been going through the whole rigmarole of the workers' compensation world, and they've been going to hearings and going to their doctor and getting their physical therapy and going to IMEs and then having another hearing and then having their money cut, and then they have a surgery and then the money goes up and then it just gets cut again by another IME. For a lot of people, it takes a toll on them mentally, and it really has an effect on their life. And sometimes getting that closure and knowing that case is closed and I'm just moving on with my life, and I'm going to regroup and pick myself up by my bootstraps and move on with my life. That's sometimes is more helpful than anything else. And getting that closure is an important thing for a lot of people. Do not rush into a Section 32 if certain things are going on. If you might need to reopen your case later, if you want to keep that option open to reopen your case, whether it's for medical, increase in awards, increase in benefits, some people just like having that cushion there, then don't settle your case. Then don't settle your case with a Section 32. Doesn't mean you can't settle your case with a stipulated agreement. You can't other types of agreements, but a Section 32 might not be the option for you. To each their own. And I'm not one to ever judge anybody for making decisions that are suitable for them. Like we were saying before, settling your case with a Section 32 and putting an end to those weekly checks and being on chasing the carrier for money. And what if the check is a day or two late? And getting that big check and closing the case, it gives you the mental clarity you need to move forward. There are people who think the opposite way, and they say, you know what, I'd rather not have $100,000 in my bank account. I'd rather know that every 2 weeks a check is going to come, and if my check is a day or two late, I could just call my lawyer and they'll follow up with the insurance company. If it's super late, they might get a penalty on it, but I like to know that I'm on that schedule, and they like that type of rhythm to their life. Everyone is different, and there are people who, I've had clients tell me, don't ever give me a lot of money. I'm terrible with money. I'm going to piss it away on stupid things. Let me get those weekly awards for as long as you can, and I don't want a big lump sum of money because I'm just going to hurt myself or spend it on crap. And that happens. I've had that discussion with people. So not the lump sum Section 32 large check is not for everybody. Do not rush into a Section 32 if you have not yet reached MMI, maximum medical improvement. And we're going to discuss this more in depth on one of the next few slides. But if you need big, expensive, invasive treatment, maybe now is not the time to get into a Section 32. You don't want to shut yourself out of important treatment that you really do need to get better. So if you need ongoing medical care, significant ongoing medical care, do not rush into a Section 32. Proceed with caution. And again, if you're bad at managing money, if you don't want that big check, do not rush into it. Make sure you know what you're doing. I see a bunch of questions popping up here, some good ones. I'm going to get to all those questions in a moment, so bear with me. I want to make sure I hit all the slides. We spent a lot of time prepping these lovely slides. Oh, hold on a second. So what is the step-by-step process for a workers' compensation, Section 32 workers' compensation settlement? Usually, the insurance company approaches you or your lawyer approach the insurance company. It can happen at any point in time. A lot of times we get an email from the insurance company saying, hey, is your client interested in the 32? If so, get us a demand. I usually respond and say, if you're interested in 32, and it sounds like you are, why don't you give me an offer that I take to my client? And that might get the blood churning and move the discussion along a little faster, and they usually don't do much there. But anyway, sometimes you can call your lawyer and say, hey, this case has been going on for a year, 2 years, whatever it is. Let's start looking to wrap this thing up. Maybe a Section 32, maybe a settlement of my case would be a good option. Give me a status. Let me know if that's fair. And sometimes I'll be doing a file review and I'll say, hey, this case might be ripe for a settlement. Hey, client, how you doing today? Good. I was looking over your file. How are you feeling? What's going on? Tell me about your life. Maybe this is a good time to settle your case. And sometimes a judge will say, hey, this case looks like it's asking for a settlement. Why don't the parties go back and discuss it and see if it can get settled? Anything can spark the Section 32 chat, which turns into negotiation. So what happens when negotiations start? You enter into a negotiation with the insurance company. You go back and forth, offers and demands and counters. And sometimes we can wrap this thing up in a matter of minutes, like I did today. We hammered out a Section 32 relatively quickly. We didn't have to get into a whole pissing contest over who's right and who's wrong and where the value is. And that's great when that happens. But sometimes it requires that back and forth, head banging, back and forth over where the value is and where the value is not. So we've had settlements resolve in minutes, and we've had settlements take years to resolve, unfortunately. Once a resolution is reached, once the parties reach what we call a tentative resolution, and everyone agrees as to what the settlement value is, the papers are drafted. Most of the time, the insurance company drafts the papers. Sometimes we draft the papers. It really depends on who the insurance company is, but it takes a couple days, maybe a week, maybe 2 weeks sometimes. I've seen it go much, much longer. I've hammered out papers with it while I'm still on the phone, wrapping up the terms of the agreement. So it could take any amount of time, but the documents are drafted. Documents are sent to the opposite side. Everyone reviews them. If we're all on the same page, no pun intended, we get the go ahead. We call you, the client, and we say, hey, your papers are done. They're reviewed. We're ready to roll. Come on in. And we have you come in and we meet with you and we go over your settlement papers and we explain the terms of the agreement. And here in the workers' compensation world, you have to watch a video about settling your case. It's a requirement with any Section 32 in New York State. We watch the video. We go over the documents. We answer questions. We make sure everyone's ready to roll with their Section 32. Once they're signed, by all parties, we submit them to the board. The compensation board here in New York then does their own separate review before the judge does a review. They make sure all the papers are properly executed, dated, numbers make sense, all questions are answered. They go through everything to make sure the papers are ready to go in front of the judge. Once that's done, it could take 2, 3, 4, sometimes it could take up to 6 weeks to get it on the board's calendar. It really depends on how busy the board is. And then you will get a hearing with a judge. The workers' comp board here in New York has been sometimes issuing desk decisions. It's usually on settlements under $10,000, where the board will automatically, administratively approve the agreement, give the parties 30 days to object if there's an objection, and then the agreement becomes finalized that way. But most of them go to a judge, and the judge then goes through the papers, walks the client through the papers, whether the judge asks the questions or we ask the questions. But we make sure that the client is fully aware of what they're getting into and that they're settling their case for X amount of dollars. We go through the attorney's fees and the medical allocations and the fact that you watch the video and all those fun things. And if everything is good, the judge will approve your settlement. And that begins the 10-day cooling off period. And you have 10 days to change your mind. If you want to change your mind, you have 10 days to do it. If the insurance company wants to change their mind, they have 10 days to do it. They just have to do that in writing if they do want to change their mind and back out of the agreement. Switching gears here with the water bottle. If you do choose to withdraw, and it does happen from time to time, you got to send a written letter to the board and to the insurance company saying, hey, I don't, and you don't have to give a reason. I respectfully withdraw from this Section 32, and the board will rescind the 32 and potentially put the case back on calendar. You talk to your lawyer and you guys figure out what your next steps are at that point. Once the 10 days pass, the board will issue its decision, and then the insurance company has 10 days to pay you from that decision date. Always keep the letter that your check comes in, because if it's late, the postmark on the envelope is going to tell us that it's late. And if it's late, you could be entitled to a late payment penalty. Late payment penalty is generally 20% of the amount that's late. So that could be a lot of money. $100,000 settlement. If you're netting $100,000, that's $20,000. That's significant. So always keep an eye on when you get that check. It's important to know. It's not 10 days or even 20 days from the date of your Section 32 hearing. It's 10 days from the issuance of the decision, and that's in the bottom right-hand corner of your decision. Usually it takes about 3 to 4 weeks from the date of the hearing to get all your money. A lot of hi questions coming in. Hi, Ms. Hernandez, or Mr. Hernandez. I'm assuming. How much is my workers' compensation settlement, my Section 32 settlement, worth? So typically, and this is a question we get all the time, and it's really hard to say what the range is, because, if we're talking about a PPD case with the cap, we look at what the overall cap value is. And, I've seen offers being made at 25 and 30 and 35% of that overall cap value. And I've settled cases at 80 or 90% of that cap value. Every case is different. Every case is its own little creature that requires its own special attention, and you don't want to jump the gun and say that this is the range of what the value of a case is and mine should be towards the high end of that range. Every case is different, which is why it's important you have a lawyer who can help walk you through it. And if you need help, you can always call me, 212-406-8989. I know there was somebody had an issue that they couldn't get a hold of me. I apologize. Let's connect and let me see what I can do to help you. Settlements can range from tens of thousands to over $1 million in severe cases. It's rare, super rare, but it has happened. In the workers' compensation world, like we've discussed many, many times before, and really the most important distinguishing factor when it comes to injuries, there are two main types of cases in the workers' comp world. There are those SLU, those scheduled loss of use cases, those non-scheduled loss of use cases. So we need to distinguish between the two different groups. Scheduled loss of use cases are the arms, legs, hands, feet, fingers, toes, hearing loss, things like that. The value of that case is based upon a chart, a fixed chart that was created by the New York State legislature however many years ago, and assigns a value to each of those body parts. An arm, total loss of use of an arm gets you 312 weeks of compensation. So 10% of an arm gets you 31.2 weeks of compensation. 100% of a leg gets you 288 weeks of compensation. 10% is 28.8. A hand is worth 244 weeks. So foot is worth 205 weeks. So depending on what body part it is and what your overall level of permanent disability is to that body part, that tells us what the value is. 25% loss of use of an arm. So if you have 25% loss of use of an arm and you are earning $900 a week at your job, well, you're entitled to 2/3. You're entitled to the max benefit, which is 2/3 of your average weekly wage, which is subject to a maximum by law. So you'd be entitled to $600 per week. And if you have a 25% loss of use of an arm is worth $312. 25% of that is 78 weeks. You'd be entitled to 78 weeks of benefits at $600 per week. The total value is $46,800. Now, when you're trying to resolve a Section 32 there, you got to look at what the insurance company doctor is saying, and you got to look at what your doctor is saying. Is that 25% the split down the middle? You got to really examine where the doctor's high points and low points are and try to make those arguments when trying to settle your case. But generally speaking, you want to try to get somewhere close to what your doctor's saying, at least above a split between what the two doctors are saying, and get the case settled that way. But that's if you only have a schedulable type of injury. If you have a non-schedule, the head, neck, back, the brain injuries, silicosis is a case that we're dealing with, lungs, pelvis, things like that, cancer. The value of the case is based upon your loss of wage earning capacity, and it's capped out. So once you reach that permanency level, the judge makes a determination as to what your level of permanent disability is overall. They factor in your vocational background. So you might have a 50% disability, but if you can't read and write and you don't speak English, which some judges say speaking a different language is a benefit to you, but whatever mitigating factors, they could take a 50% disability and bump you to a 60 or 70%. Whatever that overall percentage of loss of wage earning capacity, we use the term LWEC, LWEC, loss of wage earning capacity, tells us how many weeks you're going to get benefits and how much you're going to get per week. So for that person who was earning $900 a week before, if they're found to have a 50% disability, for instance, they would get $300 a week, which is 50% of the total. The total would be $600. So they get 50%, they get $300 a week. They get that for 300 weeks. A 75% disability gets them $450 a week, a 75% rate for $450 for 450 weeks. No, it's 400 weeks. Let's check the videotape. 400 weeks. They get $450 for 400 weeks. So depending on where you land on that scale, the higher your overall loss of wage earning capacity, the more money you get and the longer you get it for. Now, you take those numbers and then you figure out what the overall cap value is going to be. So again, taking a person who earns $600 a week, we're going to keep it simple here. If you're earning $600 a week and you have a 75% permanent disability, 75% is 75% of 2/3. So $600 a week, 2/3 of which is $400 a week, 75% of that is $300 a week. You would get $300 a week for 400 weeks. The cap value is $120,000. Now, depending on your particular case and the pros and the cons, they might offer you as little as 30%. 30% of that's $36,000. That doesn't sound so good. But sometimes you can get as much as 80 or 90%. 80% of that is $96,000. So there's a pretty wide spread there. A lot of the important factors that affect your Section 32 value. Number one, your average weekly wage is a huge factor. So give your lawyer your pay stubs, your tax returns, proof of your earnings when they ask for it, to make sure that you're getting the right amount of money and your average weekly wage is set at the proper rate, because your average weekly wage tells us what your rate of compensation is going to be. They're directly tied together. Your disability rating. So make sure you're on the same page as your doctor, because some people get blindsided when their doctor says, yeah, you have a 25% disability. And you say, what do you mean? You've been telling me I'm total this whole time. And, it's important that people stay on the same page with their doctors and they understand where their disability rating is coming from and how that translates into your permanency ranking and ultimately your settlement value. Future medical costs. Also, stay on the same page as your doctor with respect to future medical, because it's important to factor that into your settlement as well. Your age and your life expectancy. I know it's morbid and we hate talking about it, but sometimes there's an inverse relationship here, and it's funny how the argument gets pulled both ways. Sometimes they'll make the argument that a younger worker with a horrible permanent injury is going to have a much longer life, and they're going to be entitled to benefits over a much longer period, and we can bump the settlement rate up that way. Then you have the insurance company turns around and says, this young guy is going to retrain himself and go back to a different job in the next few years. His benefits are going to go down. So it certainly it opens the whole door to the argument both ways, which is why Top Floor is asking me that question. Does age make a difference? Age does make a difference, and it depends on how we craft your argument of your case and how we can push and pull and get you the right amount of money. Your prior payments are a huge factor, especially in those scheduled loss of use cases, because they directly take credit for your prior payments. Now, in the non-scheduled cases, we have seen insurance companies. There are certain insurance companies, I'm not going to name names, that will make an offer on June 15th, 2024, we offered you $100,000. And this person's been getting $500 a week for the last year. So now on June 15th, 2025, a whole year has passed and you've been paid $25,000. Well, now we're lowering our demand to $75,000. We're taking credit for the money we paid you while you've been thinking about this. And you know what? Sometimes you could bust that apart and tell them how their argument is BS, but some insurance companies try to make that argument and pull that move, and I don't like it, but just be conscious that it does happen from time to time. So although prior payments are not directly credited in a non-schedule permanent partial disability case, some insurance companies try to do that. What other factors? The Section 32 premium, I call it, the Section 32 value. The simple value that an insurance company gets for closing a case with a Section 32 is worth something. So you might have the most basic claim on earth. You might have a no loss time scratch to your back, something that you're never going to lose time. There's minimal treatment, and it's really not worth a whole heck of a lot of money at all. But the insurance company says, let's do a Section 32. I'm going to say, well, you're getting the value of this case going away forever and ever. And that is worth something. So before we even talk about the merits of the case and where any value might lie, you should be ponying up money just to get this settlement off the ground, because you're getting a full and complete final closure of this case. Now, some other special considerations on the valuation, like we said before, those Medicare set-asides. If you're on Medicare or you have a reasonable expectation to be Medicare eligible within the next 30 months, part of your settlement might need to be set aside for your Medicare set-aside for you to cover your future medical care. And the value that you and your lawyer determine the case to be, sometimes doesn't factor in that Medicare set aside because it comes afterwards, and you might have to regroup and reevaluate the claim and have a whole new negotiation with the insurance company, because the federal government is telling you what to do here and you have to do it. And if you don't do it, you have to change that settlement so that if they're not satisfied, then at least your medical is left open so that there's no possibility of you going back and billing Medicare for something that they should not be responsible for. Attorney's fees are another consideration. Once that agreement is reached, you got to understand that your lawyer does get a fee. They get 15% of whatever the indemnity portion of that settlement is. So from your overall settlement, part of it's going to be medical, part of it's going to be indemnity, and the lawyer gets 15% of the indemnity, generally speaking. You also have child support. If you owe child support, if you are in arrears, so you might be, and people kind of get confused by this. If you owe child support and you make your weekly payments and you're up to date and you're not behind in your child support, you're fine. But if you have fallen behind, if you are in arrears, if you owe back money and you are settling your case with a Section 32 settlement, the judges will look for it. They will directly ask you the question. It's also on a sworn document where you indicate whether you do or do not owe back money in arrears. If you owe it, it's going to come out of the settlement first. So if you have a $100,000 settlement and your lawyer's taking a $13,000 fee and you have $40,000 in child support, well, the fee is going to get paid, the child support's going to get paid, and you're going to get $47,000 remaining or whatever it might be. So you got to keep that in mind. Just a couple more slides. I want to make sure I get all this stuff because this is the good stuff. So when is the best time to settle your workers' compensation case with a Section 32 settlement? The sweet spot, I call it. The sweet spot for settlement, the most strategic time is after it's clear that you're going to have a permanent injury, that you've gone through most of the treatment that you're going to need, but before everything becomes fully finalized, before you get all the last of your treatment, before there's a final decision on permanent disability. And sometimes it does get to that point, but we try to start the ball rolling on settlement if it's that type of case before we reach that point, because that uncertainty creates uncertainty, and that's for the insurance company as well. And we try to take advantage of that to show where case value might be higher. There's more room to negotiate before permanency is decided. The insurance company faces that unknown risk and may pay significantly more. We have seen it happen. And if they undervalue, or if they think if you think they're undervaluing you, you don't have to settle, and you can let that case proceed. You still have another option. It's another. We want to open up options for you, open doors. Settling too late after permanency has been ruled upon kind of locks you into a grid, locks you down, and it reduces the flexibility. Having the appeal option open, does open up a little flexibility, but once a judge has determined that this is your level of permanent disability, it really closes the bookends on where we can negotiate, and that's not always a bad thing. In certain cases, we want that, but generally speaking, I like to be as free and have as many options as possible when I'm trying to reach a resolution. This way we can maximize dollar value. Insurance companies also settle at this stage before that final decision has been made, because it saves them the cost of litigation. It saves them from depositions and hearing and litigation expenses and more IMEs and addendums on an IME and so on and so forth. If they can get this thing hammered out and done, it's going to save them the cost of litigation. They also prefer the certainty of a final closure over the uncertainty of a case dragging out. Who knows what a judge is going to decide. Other factors that you want to weigh on, if your medical care, your future medical treatment is stable and predictable, settling usually makes sense. You know what the future holds to some degree. I mean, we don't all have a crystal ball, but you kind of have a good idea. But if you have major procedures, surgeries, hardware removals, spinal cord stimulator battery replacements, all these, those who know, maybe it's a little bit better to wait or to expand your options with different types of settlements. Any questions? So I know you guys have questions. I'm going to get to all your questions. So let's jump in with the questions. Ms. B is already going to town with the likes. Like it up, folks. I'm here for you. Robin, hello, Rex and everyone. I hope you're all doing well today. We're doing great. Thank you. Ms. B is here. Hello, Ms. B. She's driving. I hope you stop driving. Carlos is here from Tennessee. MD Raju, hello, Rex. Hello, sir. Okay. C. Hampton received the workers' compensation acceptance approval after waiting a year, now waiting 3 months for medical treatment from the insurance company for 2 fractured vertebrae and a TBI, traumatic brain injury. I can't believe the insurance company gets to get away with this. Hampton, what state are you in? Because usually in New York State, if you have a case that's controverted, if the insurance company is not voluntarily accepting that claim, but you're claiming workers' compensation benefits, that's why people go to doctors that are workers' comp doctors. They know the system, they know the process, and they will start your treatment and stabilize you and give you what you need. And God forbid there's an emergency that pops up. You have a doctor that's caring for you. If emergency surgery is necessary, you're not left hanging out in the cold. So I'm just curious to know what state that case is being heard in, because here in New York, generally a doctor would at least start basic care until the case gets established. MD Raju, hello, Rex. After 3 months, neck surgery, how long will it take to settle my workers' compensation case? Please advise. So, a settlement could come at any point in time. You could have surgery, 3 months can go by. You could be feeling great. You can go back to work and you could settle your case and be done with it. Your doctor, I don't want to say what the negative alternative, because it's wide open, but you can choose to settle at any point in time, but you just want to be cognizant of what you're giving up. If your doctor says you might need a revision surgery in 6 months, or if he puts screws in your neck and he says that screws might have to come out, you might not want to settle so quick. But if your doctor says, hey, you're doing great, physical therapy is doing great, you're all healed up, you're not going to get an infection, maybe you kind of know what the future holds, and maybe now is a good time to settle. 3 months is a little quick. I would give it a little more time. It also depends on whether you've gone back to work or not, and there's a few other factors that I'd want to know about there. But talk to your lawyer, talk to your doctor. Getting to the bags. Hi, Rex. Will you please do a video on bad faith cases? Thank you for making these videos. I drive my lawyer crazy with the questions. Tell your lawyer I'm sorry. Not my goal here to drive anybody crazy. Bad faith cases. What do you mean by bad faith? The liar cases, the people who are lying and committing insurance fraud and trying to get money when they're not entitled to it, or the bad faith cases where the insurance companies do sneaky things. I don't like to highlight those things because I'm going to be honest, they are few and far between, and I don't want to highlight any one person's case too much, especially when there's something negative like that. It is kind of a red flag. But let me know what you really mean by bad faith cases. Jeff Thomas, Rob Thomas's big brother, says, is it true you only get 30 to 40% if you get a Section 32? No, it's not true. You can get much more. Depending on the type of case, depending on where the value lies. We were working on a case earlier today where if you look at the schedules of the case is worth $6,000 and we're getting $20,000. Why? Because the carrier is getting that Section 32 closure value. The carrier is getting the value of not having to litigate this case till the end of days, and they're saving money there, and they're getting rid of a person who has been around for a while. So maybe it's worth it to them. So that person's getting over 100% value on their Section 32. So it's not always true. Like I say, they're their own special animals, their own special creatures, and we got to deal with them on their merits. Drew is in New Jersey with my cervical and lumbar surgeries completed, functional capacity evaluation done, and the neurologist report sent August 12th. What is the status of my workers' compensation case and why the delay in scheduling permanency exams or settlements? I don't know, Drew. I don't practice in New Jersey. I don't know. I know some great lawyers in New Jersey that do workers' compensation law, and hopefully one of them is representing you. And if you don't have a lawyer, you need help finding one, please give me a call and I'll help you find somebody. But I don't know the answer to that question. And you know what? Sometimes as much as workers' comp is designed to be a faster way of getting benefits for people who are out of work, it's not always the fastest system on earth. There are log jams in different scheduling places, and it could be something like that. But check with your lawyer on that. Top floor is 21 years old in New York, had a foot injury on a job that led to surgery. I'm still recovering, have not reached MMI. I'm still unable to work. Do you think my case is worth seeking legal help? Absolutely. Absolutely. Give me a call if you need help finding an attorney. I mean, why not? Here's the thing. Workers' comp consultations are free. You could call an attorney, get on the phone, and have your consultation, and it's free. And they can't charge you, and they can ask you the questions, and you can ask them the questions. And if it's something that you think is right for you, absolutely. There's no reason not to at least have a consultation. And does age make a difference? That's what we discussed earlier. It can and it cannot. So again, if you have a question for me, top floor 212-406-8989. And Mr. Hampton is saying, I don't mean to assume gender. If you opt for a Section 32 and years later you need medical attention for the same body parts, will Medicare accommodate coverage? Great question. Question for Medicare. And it really comes down to a lot of different factors. If that treatment down the road is solely and causally related due to that workers' compensation accident and those injuries and that claim, probably not. If you develop something else happens to you, if you if you have a new accident, then maybe somebody else would be responsible. It's really hard to say. That crystal ball doesn't work. But it is possible if the money that Medicare told you to set aside runs out and you treated for cause-related treatment and you weren't overcharged and you did everything by the book and you ran out of money, then potentially Medicare could accommodate coverage. So there's a lot of different factors that I really can't answer the question to. Medicare would have to answer them, but you got to be very, very careful. If you're trying to flim-flam and dupe Medicare, it's not going to work. They're too smart for that. You don't mess with the feds, bro. So just be careful. Don't try to do it. People come to me, you start talking Section 32 with people, and every once in a while they'll say, "Oh, I'll just have my doctor bill Medicare." No, I instantly stop the discussion there, and I start from square one. No, because all you're going to do is get yourself into trouble. Do not do that. That's a good question. Victoria has a beef with me. I like you, Mr. X, but I suggest you're not able to speak to me. I apologize, Miss Victoria, and maybe I was caught up last week, but I would love to speak to you. And here's what we're going to do. Do I have a way of getting to Victoria on her own? Victoria, I wish I have a way of getting you directly, but can I do it this way? I don't know. Call my office tomorrow, Victoria. Tell them that you are Victoria from the live and you really want to speak to me, and that I'll get on the phone with you. I do have a bunch of hearings and depositions tomorrow, but I will do my best. And I'm going to alert them right now that that's going to happen. Oh, Catherine, watch this. She's going to come here, please. Could you please alert everybody that if Victoria calls tomorrow, that I would like to take that phone call, and if I am busy with a deposition or a phone call or a hearing, send me an email.
Sure.
Thank you. There you go, Victoria. But Teddy Grams, I recently settled my claim. The insurance company, the insurance adjuster settled as my eyes are starting to go. I recently settled my claim. The insurance adjuster settled it as denied. I've been receiving SDI. Do I need to? I'm lost. They settled it as denied. We do think I'm gonna guess this is not a New York case. Fill me in. I know I've been helping. I'm yawning. I know I've been helping you guys. But I think that your case is not in New York because the vernacular is different. Mr. Hyrex, why my attorney doesn't respond to my email? It's maybe because she doesn't care about my case anymore. I don't think that's true. We get busy. Victoria will tell you we get busy. We get busy, and sometimes you're just trying to keep up with the flow. So I wouldn't say that your lawyer doesn't care about you. We care about you. Keep trying until you get an answer. Sometimes people are worried about being annoying. The ones that are worried about being annoying usually are not annoying. It's the ones that don't think that it's happening are the ones that make you a little bonkers, but whatever. Mr. Juliki 12. Hi, Mr. Rex. My case has been accepted by insurance a week after I had a knee surgery and stopped working. How long after my surgery could I start receiving payments for my time off work? Usually, once the insurance company gets that operative report, they'll start making payments within a few days. So make sure your doctor knows. Make sure your lawyer knows. Make sure your lawyer knows who your doctor is and when your surgery was. Because what we do is we call the doctor's office and say, hey, let's get that opera report moving so we can get it into the insurance company, request a hearing, and make sure that the benefits get started as soon as possible, because that's what we're here for, to make sure you get your benefits. Does getting a second surgery increase the value of your case? Sometimes yes, sometimes no. Why? Surgery, having a surgery is indicative of a very significant injury that requires surgery. Surgery is also there to make you better. So as bad as you might be, surgery is supposed to improve your condition from before the surgery. So it's really, it can be argued both ways. But generally speaking, having a surgery or 2 or 10 is indicative of a very significant injury. So the sentiment is yes. Maddie Jr. Rob, Maddie J. Rob. Hi. Hope all is well. All is super duper. B. Hernandez says hi. Rex. And there we have Smurf Choke. I don't know if I'm saying something that is going to get me in trouble. Good afternoon. Is it normal for the insurance company to keep paying you after MMI? I'm still getting paid. I got MMI almost 2 weeks ago. In New York, yes. If you've reached MMI according to your doctors or their doctors or both doctors and the judge, yes, you could still potentially be getting MMI. And it depends on what your classification rate is going to be. That's really a good question for the lawyer. And you should speak to your lawyer. I assume you have one if you're this far into your case. If you don't and you need help, you can call me 212-406-8989. Sam I am eats green eggs and ham. I've been on workers' comp for 2 years. My employer is still covering my health insurance and providing me with a company car. I'm 61 and it looks like I'm getting approved for SSDI. Settle now. I have low back and neck injuries. I mean, I would totally have a nice sit down with your lawyer. You might lose those perks, the health insurance and the car at some point in time, whether it's settlement triggers that or not. I would just be cognizant and aware that could happen. Just know that might happen. But now's a good time to have a chat with your lawyer. If you're approaching MMI and you're just got approved for SSD, it seems like it's a good time to start that discussion. B. Hernandez wants to know who would be the one that says you have reached MMI, have a primary care doctor and 2 different surgeons, or would it be one of their QME doctors? It could be any of those or all of them. So usually once the first one jumps and says MMI, the rest chime in and give their opinion. Jeff Thomas, if you get approved for SSDI and your case is ongoing, does the carrier get nervous and would they offer you to settle? Maybe. Because the SSD does show that your injury is significant enough to trigger federal disability benefits. So sometimes, yes. And like I've said in the past, there is a movement here, and it's not anything more than just chatter at this point. But we're trying to get a change in the law where workers' compensation would be bound by the findings of the Social Security Administration. Right now, if Social Security finds a person totally disabled, it's almost a feather in the cap of the judges to scoff at it and say, well, we're not bound by the federal government. We're not bound by Social Security's findings of disability. They're just persuasive. They are not binding on us. Haha. But we're trying to make a move to make that binding. If the person's disability is significant enough for the federal government to deem it disabling, workers' comp should find it totally disabling as well. So, but before that happens, it's just persuasive, but that persuasion might be enough to get the insurance company nervous and offer to settle the case, to answer your question. Good question, Jeff. Miss B is on patrol. She's monitoring the likes. Do not piss her off, guys. You don't want to see her when she's angry. The Incredible Hulk has nothing on Miss B. Hit the like button, please. Berserk. Hi, Rex. I'm in my workers' compensation case since 2024. All the time I was getting $300 per week, but September 12th, I have my testimony. My real average weekly wage is $1,900. So what will be next? Will they pay me back? They should. So if that $300 rate that you were getting before is reflective of the total rate, I'm assuming they found you to be earning $450, but now you're saying you're earning $1,900. Yes, if your average weekly wage goes up, your benefits should go up proportionally. So you should be entitled to get all that money back. Make sure you go over it with your lawyer. Mika Moore, if you have both SLUs and non-SLUs, are they settled separately? No. They settle in the manner that is more conducive to how your case is going to resolve. Simply put, have you gone back to work or are you out of work? And it really depends. Like I said, every case is different, but we evaluate both sides of the coin and we try to craft your case and push it in the direction that's best for you. Mika Moore, Mandy Moore's young sister. It's okay, Rex. The Eagle has landed. I just had to say, so you all know why I was not in the chat. I was parked. Ms. B was driving. No. Complete system failure. I finally got a new representative at the same firm. It's plumb crazy, the difference in the person representing you. Thank you, Rex, for all your help. My pleasure. Candy Eyes. Sounds like a Doobie Brothers song. I'd love to keep my weekly settlement payment for one more year before I do a Section 32. Will I be penalized for waiting in New York City 2 out of the 5 years and I just got Medicare? Penalized? I mean, I don't know about penalty. Penalty is a bad thing. I know what you're asking me, but I don't know enough about your case to know exactly what to do here. This is a question for your lawyer. Tell your lawyer what your goals are, what you're trying to get done. You know, one thing I'm just going to say, a lot of people use workers' comp as their retirement platform, and they try to set up their case for the best way to benefit them. And you don't, it's not a retirement. What's happening here? Anyway, so it's not, that type of planning doesn't always work, but sit down with your lawyer, let them know what your thoughts are and what you're looking to do, and try to achieve the best result for you personally. I don't know what this says. I hurt my head, forearm, and neck plus knee slipped out. How is my case worth after 3 months, 100% disability from the doctor? A lot of information missing from that question for me to give you an honest answer. Leo McGarry, how different is that? The company has their own workers' comp process and approval of stuff. And so I don't know what you're asking me. Hampton, I knew your case was not a New York case. It's in Nevada. Neglecting my treatments. I don't know if insurance companies neglecting my treatments or my attorneys. Call your attorney and get an explanation. That's really the best place to start. Do I have an office in Atlanta? Sure. Dragon Dew, like Mountain Dew. Call me, 212-406-8989. I can help find you an attorney in Atlanta. I can help B. Hernandez find you an attorney in Northern California, IA. Give me a call. Teddy Graham's in California. You can give me a call. We already did that one. I was laid off while on workers' compensation in North Dakota. Will my financial benefits be discontinued because I was laid off due to a staff reduction while receiving workers' comp? I don't know North Dakotan laws. I don't know. In New York, I would need additional information to answer that question. I simply don't know the laws in North Dakota. Ms. B, thank you. I want to talk to you too. Very nice of you to always be so helpful. She's been a great help. Teddy Graham's settlement read as claim denied, but chose to settle to avoid litigation. So again, California case. I don't know if that applies or not. That the settlement reduction. It's got to be handled on a case by case basis. Duke. My dog's name was Duke. I miss him so. Hi, Rex. And that's funny coming from a guy named Rex, where once a week I hear, oh, I had a dog named Rex and I miss him so. Well, Duke, you're the butt of that joke right now, my friend. I'm sorry. If the insurer is appealing an ALJ, administrative law judge decision that was in my favor, obviously, in a work comp case, and we win the decision, does my attorney get paid by the insurer and how much under New York laws? So if a judge makes a decision that's in your favor, the insurance company appeals it, you are successful on the appeal. They are unsuccessful on the appeal, and the decision is affirmed. Then the awards made in that decision get paid to you, and you're a lawyer if there was a fee awarded. And then usually you get another hearing to kind of pick up from that point and move it forward. Is it possible to change to another lawyer in New York State? It is very possible. You're not bound by anything. If you want to consult with a new attorney, you can always do that. Dennis just hit like. If I could like your like, I would like your like for liking. Who decides MMI is done? Ultimately, it's the judge's decision, but it's based upon the medical. So the judge can they see medical evidence from one side or both sides that may give their opinion on maximum medical improvement, but the final decision comes from the judge. If I never plan on using Medicare, Medicaid, do you still have a set aside? If you are receiving Social Security disability benefits, Medicare benefits, or you are Medicare eligible or have a reasonable possibility of being Medicare eligible within a certain time frame, I think it's 30 months, yes, you still have to do a set aside. There are legal requirements as to when a Medicare set aside is required. And even if you never plan on using it, you never plan on applying for it, if you fall within those categories, you might still have to do it. Ms. B is on at 36 likes. That's all we did today. Talking section 32, the money. Talking about the money. Hit the like button so you can help Rex out. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Whenever I start receiving my workers' compensation benefits, it sounds like one of those SNL commercials. Whenever I see Grandpa out back staring at the stars, whenever I start receiving my workers' compensation wages, will insurance company also include back pay after waiting over a year? Yes. Generally, yes. If you were out of work for that period of time and you have medical to cover it, and this is New York that we're talking about, and you were not compensated and it's compensable lost time, then yes, potentially you should get that money. Mijo Tito, after awarded a PD in a findings and award, I've discovered repeated fraudulent reports included repeated occasions. The defense clearly concealed medical records, and I have medical examinations. You're going to want to talk to your lawyer and show them that stuff. That's what that comes down to. Jeff hit like. Ms. B says thank you. Mustafa gets the last question of the evening. I recently got MMI. The doctor came back with 7.5 of the foot, but said, since I refused surgery, I'm not an MMI. I thought I could say no to surgery and still reach MMI in New York State. Do I need any recommended treatments? You're not required to have surgery. I would talk to your doctor about that. If you're not going to do the surgery, you can go ahead and ask your doctor to give you a 4.3. 41 likes, 86 in the chat. Hit the like button. But you know what, Ms. B? I'm not going to beg. I am too proud to beg. With that, folks, we're going to wind down here. The staff has they're waiting for me to go over a few things before they hit the road. So I thank you. Next week, we're going to come back to you with another awesome video. Better than ever. We're shooting for Wednesday, folks. We're shooting for Wednesday at 4:30. YouTube Live. I'm going to see you there. Great stuff. No, Dennis, you bring the great stuff, my friend. Next Wednesday at 4:30, we're going to do live. I know a couple people popped in questions on YouTube. It's they're easier to see and respond to on. I'm losing my marbles here. Instagram. The Instagrammers who have posted a few questions, they're teeny tiny, and you're far away. If you can post them on YouTube, it's easier, it's better. If not, I'm going to get to you next week. I apologize. What is this? If you're going, oh, your lawyer. If you're going away, yeah, tell your lawyer. That's a good point. If you're ever going away and you're leaving the country, make sure you tell your lawyer. Good point. Folks, thank you so much. Thank you, Marlon. It's been my pleasure. Next week, 4:30, we have another great topic for you. And thank you so much. We'll see you all then. Bye-bye.